Live and online, it's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, it's Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube on this Wednesday evening. Been looking forward to this show since Thursday night after me and my girlfriend got out of the movie. We are talking Civil War today. It remains to be seen if this will prompt a civil war amongst the hosts of this show. But I am super excited because the one thing this movie did not fail to do was leave us with a lot to talk about. So we are going to unpack it. Thought it was best. I think Joe suggested this at first. Thought it was best. I think we made this decision last week, and unless something was hugely critical breaking news, was to really just go the whole time talking about Civil War, which I'm more than okay with. There's plenty to talk about with this movie. It is the movie with the highest budget of any A24 release thus far. It has had the biggest opening weekend of any A24 movie thus far. So there's a lot to chew on with this movie. I'm super excited to talk about it. It's made by one of the most fascinating directors, I think, working today. One of the best American directors working today, too. It's got a slew of great performances. So we are going to be talking about this for the remainder of the show. Of course, I would be talking to myself if not for Dominic Guanzon and Joe Viso joining me live tonight as well. So lot to unpack tonight. Cannot wait to get into it. Joe, you already set the stage with your background here, but first things first, before we dive into anything Civil War related, how are you, my friend?
War will do that to you. Nice.
I can see that, man. Damn. Yeah, it's been a hell of a week over here as well, too. Maybe not to that extent, but it's definitely been a hell of a week over here too, man.
I also just realized I was muted the entire time while saying that on the OBS stream. So to sum it up, I am stressed out because of school and work, and it has left me really tired.
Joe, I can't believe you said that about the president. Holy shit.
I know. Yeah. You can put anything.
Not even the movie president. That was like Joe Biden. No, I'm kidding.
I'm just stressed out from school and work. And if you couldn't tell from my Italian gestures of throwing my hands in the air and ruining this green screen background, it's been a rough one this week.
Damn, I was gonna say I didn't have the stream up there. Holy shit! I'm sorry. I wish I would have. I definitely wish I would have let you know on that you were muted.
Thanks to Pawitzel in the chat, if I'm saying that name correctly, who just said he's muted.
How many people do we have watching? No shame if the number's like 2. 2. Exactly. All right.
Hey,
hell yeah.
All right. 200% growth from last week. All right. Good God. I appreciate you watching, my friend, and thank you for letting us know that our friend was muted over here, too. I should probably tune into the stream. That would be a novel idea. Dominic, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing all right. So I went to Costco and I bought a 5 pound bag of chocolate flavored whey protein. Uh, I meant to get the 1 pound, but then I grabbed the 5 pound. I'm like, oh, this is really heavy. And then uh in my eternal narcissism, I was like, well, if I put the 5 pound bag back on the shelf, everyone's gonna think I'm a coward. So I just walked straight to the checkout lane and I bought what I'm getting at is that I'm gonna get them gains. And I'm actually going to try. I measured myself. I was at 153 last month. We'll see if I can break 154 by the end of the year. But no, I've always been a scrawny little guy, and I'm gonna work on it. And I'm gonna see what happens. And I haven't stepped foot in the gym thus far. It's all at home calisthenics. But so we'll see if that works, and we'll see if I can actually keep up with it, and we'll see if my bathroom trips will be pleasant. But regardless, there's that. Also, went to the mechanic to get my oil changed. Usually $70-$80. Turns out I have a plethora of issues. So battery needs replacement. Air filter was installed incorrectly, and apparently my brakes are like at 30% capacity, like it's like 3 millimeters or whatever. So I couldn't even afford that, so I spent $300 today instead of 70, and I'm gonna spend another 300 at some point soon. So that's great that I got that going for me. uh so yeah, stay in school.
Dom, if I may say, honestly, there's no shame in doing home workouts. I've gone back to working at home. One, because it just saves more money in the long run than paying
Yeah.
for a gym membership all over and over. Um, it really does. I mean, all you got to do if you're looking to do it from home, and you can always text me about stuff. I bought
I really
the
should. I've been meaning to.
no,
Yeah.
no, yeah, no, absolutely. I bought the. I recommend doing this at the start of the year. I know you'll have to wait a very long time, but just if you want to do body workouts such as squats, push-ups, just to get you in the momentum of working out constantly, do that. But eventually, you could get those interchanging weights, dumbbells, where like you
Mm,
select your weight and it just like it basically locks
okay.
weights onto it as you're selecting it. It's a whole like cool machine. They're about $200 around the start of the year because everybody wants to buy them to reach
Hmm.
New Year's resolutions. Buy a bench that you can adjust, like so you can do incline or flat on your back. That's all you need. If you're looking to just do weighted workouts, that's all you need. You could find plenty of workouts with just using dumbbells and that at home, and you'll be good to go.
That's what I've heard. Is that the fancy schmancy machines, while they're not completely useless, it's like you technically don't need that. Like
No,
you'll be okay.
you'll be okay.
Yeah.
It's just another alternative if you're not comfortable with dumbbells, or you're looking to experience and have different variety. But if you're just like in the
Gotcha.
zone and just want to work out, like I've become over the years, totally. If you're looking to get to a gym, I always tell people, as much shit as Planet Fitness gets, it's not a bad place to start.
Okay. For sure. We'll talk later at the latest, by the summertime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I do not work out, so I cannot give you any advice on that. I will say we are kind of twins though, because I got my oil changed today as well.
Oh, nice.
I wish I had as few problems or as I did. I wish you had as few problems as I did. The only
Hmm.
other thing that was different besides oil change and tire rotation for me today was I had to and I've had to do this for like almost a year. I went the entire summer last year without it. I needed to get more Freon for my air conditioner.
Oh, okay.
And let me tell you, the summer, because my car was fine in the summer, or like it wasn't fine. Like I didn't need an oil change. I didn't feel like taking it in, but like let me tell you, summer without air conditioning and black seats really sucks.
No. Yeah, I
You
think I
know,
did that once with my old car, and that sucked. It was gray too, so it was kind of, halfway to black.
yeah. And the thing is though, like my brakes and everything and my tires are like all at like the mid level right now. They're all at like the medium level of where they're at. Like they're in good shape, but
Hmm.
like that means they're all going to need to be replaced around the same time, or pretty
Okay.
close because everything was at like a 6 or a 7. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So so yeah, I was telling Catherine today too, because we dropped the car off and then like at like 2, and then by like 4 o'clock, I'm really starting to get antsy, not getting a call back. I'm really
Yeah.
starting to get antsy, because like you said, you never know. You think I always assume it's gonna be something bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, if you don't have transportation, especially in the areas that we're in, you're screwed.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You really are screwed. But we'll move forward. I'll talk a little bit about Civil War here, the new Alex Garland movie. This is going to dominate our show today. This is really our only topic. Towards the end, if we want, if we have time, we can dive into the box office. We can dive into the, sort of the external elements of this movie too. This is right off the bat going to be one of the most divisive and talked about movies of the year. There's no denying that too. Already, it's drum up quite the litany of reactions online. And I only suspect whenever this thing goes to Hulu, or I think it would go to Max technically, but when this thing goes to streaming, either way, it is going to be a very, very divisive and discussed movie too. I said in my review at stevepulaski.com that when the trailer for this movie dropped, it really set the internet ablaze. People did not know what it was about, but everybody had an opinion on it. It reminded me a lot of like an old George Carlin stand-up clip that goes viral. Every year we get like two Carlin clips that go viral. And maybe I'm more partial to these because Carlin's my all-time favorite comedian, but Carlin is one of the most interesting stand-up comics for a lot of reasons. But one of the reasons is, and you see this now, they talked about it actually in the American Dream documentary on HBO a couple of years ago, is that one of his lasting impacts is that people from the right and people from the left, on the political spectrums, both take his material to try to prove their point. And that happens so often. You saw it during COVID when his whole thing about when his whole spiel about germs came up during his stand-up routine about germs and everything, which wasn't political, but it talked about how kids don't play outside anymore in the 90s because of germs and things like that. That was his whole riff there. And both sides of the political aisle, when the Civil War trailer dropped, they could not wait to use the trailer as a preview for whatever one of this country's sorry ass presidential candidates America is going to look like. And that was really one of the interesting things about this movie too. Maybe more interesting and sure to be controversial and contentious in itself is that this movie is pretty apolitical. As shocking as that might be to some people, is this movie follows a group of photojournalists in the middle of a ongoing civil war in America. And it's funny because they released that map in the beginning. I don't know if you have it so you could pull it up, Joe, but A24 released the map of the United States in Civil War. And what you have, and it was a point of discussion even on this show briefly, I remember, is like California and Texas have basically teamed up to make the Western forces that are in pursuit of overthrowing the American government. And in the midst of that, you have a ton of loyalist states, predictably mostly in the Midwest, and even the larger East Coast, too. Even I think all the states on the East Coast are technically loyalists. And then you have the Florida Alliance, which is mainly the southern states, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Oklahoma, and obviously Florida. And then you have the New People's Army, which is the western half of the United States, Montana, Wyoming, places where there's 6 people in the state. So, that's almost a total non-factor unless I missed something in the movie, is the New People's Army. That's the one sector of the United States that they don't really touch on. But everybody I remember was debating, even us, were like, how in hell, what planet would California and Texas align? And we don't get the backstory to that here. But it's somewhat forgivable because this movie gives us a really rich story instead. Again, it follows a group of photojournalists led by Lee Smith, played by Kirsten Dunst. And essentially what they're trying to do is it's Wagner Moura, who plays a character named Joel, and Sammy, played by Stephen McKinley Henderson, who are traveling from the Midwest to Washington, D.C. to try to interview the president, played by Nick Offerman, who they believe is going to get overthrown and executed here very, very soon by the Western forces. And also along for the ride is Kaylee Spaney, who you might remember from Priscilla, the biopic on Elvis's wife. She plays Jessie. She's a teenager who's left her family's farmland in pursuit of a career like her idol Lee Smith as a photojournalist. So this is a road movie, and you might think like Chicago to DC is not that far of a drive, but because of how divided America is at this time and how much of the country is in ruin, they have to like loop around the eastern half of the United States to get where they need to go. They have to take this roundabout ass way. They take a lot of detours and everything. So it does fill a 2-hour movie or an hour and 40-minute movie fairly quickly. But there's a lot to discuss about this movie, too. And I think one of the more divisive aspects of this movie is the fact that it doesn't take a side. And I think it's kind of ballsy and maybe cowardice, if that's your opinion, that Garland has decided to be as apolitical as the photojournalist he follows in this movie. I say on the plus to that is that it prevents this movie from any kind of like political grandstanding or any kind of like reactionary pearl clutching or any kind of a warning, especially in an election year. I think it definitely skirts that fairly well with what Garland tries to do. But I don't love praising a movie for what it doesn't do. I like praising a movie for what it does do. And there's a lot here to talk about, a lot here to chew on. Joe, I'd like to hear your thoughts. You can take it from here.
Yeah, so I saw this movie Thursday night, opening night, because Garland, like Steve was saying, I really enjoyed his past work. Even something like his movie Men, which I'm not crazy about, I even found some enjoyment in that as well. Annihilation's like one of my favorite sci-fi films that he's made. I know everybody loves Ex Machina, and for good reason. I like that movie a ton too. But there was just something about Annihilation that I did enjoy more. Maybe upon rewatching both those movies down the line, I probably will have a different opinion. But, man, where to start with this movie? This movie, for me, I found it that, yeah, it staying apolitical was probably the best thing for it to do. And it's mainly after now seeing, I think, the reception it's been getting online from some people. And for very good reason. The movie did seem like it was marketing towards this, that it was going to say something, like Steve was saying. When the trailer dropped, both sides of the aisle were kind of taking a point of view on this trailer. And it seems like those same people who were riding on this high that this movie was going to back up their claim or be used to that are pissed that they weren't able to use this movie at all for anything. And that they've come out said, like, it wasn't, it didn't give me anything to use against the right. It didn't give me anything to use at the left. And it's like, well, if this movie would have done that, then you would have had the whole thing online of, like, this would have been a thumbnail that you would have seen on YouTube. Civil woke. And then, like, have Kristen Dunst crying. And then, like, some other person, like, big eyes glowing red or some shit. Yeah, that's probably how this movie would have gone. But for me, I really did enjoy the idea of you're following a group of photojournalists who usually stay apolitical in any war conflict. War photojournalists, to be exactly on that, because Kristen Dunst's character has been to other countries that have had, like, civil downfalls or have been in war zones, and she's seen death and people, like, just being executed in front of her for just the perfect shot to be used in a paper, used in a magazine to warn about stuff like this. I really did enjoy that the setting of this was in America. You followed photojournalists basically photo capturing the downfall of America. Almost like, and you see these photos throughout the movie. Every photo they basically take in this movie, you see a black and white image of it. And it's like watching a history book being constructed in front of your eyes of, like, the stuff you would see as a kid when you're reading about the Vietnam War, and you'd be turning the pages and you would see photos of just, like, just soldiers in black and white and everything. And I was like, this is actually, like, kind of cool to have, like, that incorporated in the film. But I think it's really interesting that it's a dystopian movie set in America, and it's really kind of asking yourself too, is a civil war really worth happening in America when the country is going to look like this? Where it's going to look like this third world, like, state where traveling from one state to another can literally be life or death. there's no law anymore. It's a lawless land at this point. Anywhere can be a battlefield. There's, a university, a football field, a fucking train yard, anything. DC even. I think it's really cool that it kind of puts that spin on this movie where it's like, hey, as divided as this country has become, and as much as one side and the other really hates each other to where you have people saying, man, I just wish we can just fucking get rid of them and be done with this and everything. This film really does paint that picture of like, okay, yeah, what if a civil war were to happen? And is it cool to see that your own home, your little small town now has become a war zone? Your son's high school where he plays football at, yeah, that's now a camp for refugees who have lost their homes to people that to the Western forces that bomb these areas and everything. It's honestly nerve-wracking watching this the entire time because it's like, one, the film is just tense as hell because of all the situations the characters get through on this road trip. Two, it's really weird seeing something like the Lincoln Memorial get blown up by a tank. Like, I've seen Independence Day. I've seen the White House get exploded by a UFO. That's
You've played Modern Warfare too.
Yeah. There's that. Oh yeah, and that's a good comparison, Dom, too. Watching that happen in Independence Day, it's like, okay, that's special effects and everything. Watching a tank, something humans have created, actually go in and destroy stuff that I recognize. And even, in Modern Warfare 2, the classic Modern Warfare 2 campaign where the Russians come and invade and you're fighting in a Burger King and everything. And it's just like, wow, this just feels weird. Like seeing my own home become war, and it makes it that more tense and eerie. It really made a riveting and suspenseful journey throughout the whole 2 hours of this film that I was just like, man, for both sides who really wanted, like, this backing up their political views, I think it remaining apolitical and not choosing a side and really saying to the audience, is something like this really worth it? Is being divided really worth it in a country like this? And some say it might be, some say it won't be, but I think this paints a clear picture of how horrific that could turn out to be for America. And I'll stop there for right now and let him pass it off to Dom.
Yeah, Alex Garland's Civil War is very, very effective in its craft. I do like Garland's work, and I think as a craft showcase, this is fantastic. The cinematography, the editing, as Joe said, that technique of the snapshots, the use of the story of the characters themselves, right? Not what's happening outside of it, but rather the plot, the straightforward plot of what these characters, what their motivations are and what they do. I think it's very effective. Kirsten Dunst, I think everyone is having a renaissance with her. It's like, oh yeah, she's a really, really, really good actress. The way she plays her role is so haunting and so very effective, and I absolutely love it. And it's been a really long time since I've really seen that.
It's probably my favorite performance of hers. I know it's so recent and everything, but I really did love it.
It's so not girl boss, which I so very much appreciate. Wagner Moura is I think he's really breaking into American because he's Brazilian, I believe, and he's really starting to break in American entertainment, and he's fantastic here. Kelly Spanny, I'm sorry,
Kaylee Spanny,
thank you. Very effective here too, and really just Stephen McKinley Henderson very much playing that type of role, but doing it very well, of course. And of course, Nick Offerman. I was very afraid that Nick Offerman's portrayal was going to be very cringy, but no, very, very effective. And the opening scene with him was very, very good with how he was, practicing his speech and whatnot. Yeah, the craft here is very effective. Dude, it felt like at times, not totally, but at times this felt like The Last of Us in terms of its like world building and setting. There was a scene where there was like an acoustic guitar playing over like ruined shots of America. It's like that has to be lifted from Last of Us, and very effectively so. I'm very happy that they did that. And overall, yes, this movie is kind of in two big parts. The second part really takes up the last third of it. Give or take. And to me, the second part really betrays what the first part is, or what the first part was really alluding to. I this is, I mean, this is like a road trip movie, right? It's a vignette, it's various vignettes of what the country is like, as Joe's explained. It's like World War Z. If you ever, not the movie,
The
if you've
book.
read the book
Yeah.
World War Z, that's basically what it is. Here's a vignette of various vignettes stitched together of what America and the world would be like during a slow walking zombie apocalypse in a much more realistic fashion. And it's a great audio book as well. It's got Mark Hamill as a character. If you're interested in that, if you're not into reading, read that book. I don't think you'll be disappointed. It reminded me at times of Downfall, the Utetang, the German foreign film. That's where all the Hitler memes came from, of Hitler, yelling and stuff, and all the,
Where there's World
for
of
like in
Warcraft
the
got canceled.
exactly in like the in the 2000s, that was a big thing there. Um, all kinds of things I could name drop uh, here, but ultimately, what Civil War, Alex Garland's Civil War here in and of itself, is it's an effective road trip movie, and it's a good like story. The plot is good for its characters, as it is what it's trying to say, trying to be apolitical. If you're being apolitical, that is a political statement in and of itself. And I'm not trying to be like, I'm 14 and this is deep. If you are trying to be centrist, if you're trying to no, seriously, I'm being serious.
No. I just love that comparison. I'm 14.
Yeah,
trying
no,
to be deep.
yeah. I haven't looked in that subreddit, but I do wonder if Garland Civil War has made some memes. There has to have been, but anyway, yeah. If you're not trying to poke any hornet's nest, please know that is a political statement in and of itself, right? We haven't gone on any Trump or Biden rants here. And not making those political statements is a political statement in and of itself. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's what that is. Us not talking about the Gaza, Palestine, Israel situation, the war in Ukraine, poverty in America, abortion, us not talking about that all too much, whether or not that's a good idea or a bad idea, that is a political statement. And that's even discussed in the movie in it itself. And I appreciate that, where it's like, yeah, are we supposed to help these people? We're just journalists. We just take a picture and we let the public decide on what to do. And that's been reflected in real life as well, where reporters, they'll take pictures of starving children in Africa. And it's like, hey, you probably should have helped that child not get eaten by a hawk, literally, because that's what the picture is. That's a famous picture I'm referencing. But regardless of all of that, as a apolitical, but really a political statement, I believe Alex Garland's Civil War is exploitative. I really believe that because in an election year of all times, putting out a film called Civil War and intersplicing footage of like the 2020, protests and riots and insurrection in 2021, right? And all that stuff. That's a very politically charged thing, and not saying anything with that. Well, that's a choice. And if this movie had been just that road trip movie, let's say they didn't want to go to DC at all, right? Not a spoiler. They go to DC and DC gets fucked up, right? There's a war going on. That's in all the trailers, right? So they do get there eventually. We know that. I kind of think this would have been better served what Garland was trying to, because I know exactly what Alex Garland's trying to do with this movie. If he had not decided to have that ending, that the whole Washington, D.C. sequence be what it was, I think it would have been much better. Would have much better served his purposes. Because, yeah, by having troops storm because look, I'm not saying that Nick Offerman should have been a direct stand-in for Biden or Trump or Obama or Bush or whatever. I'm not saying that. But having the movie be a complete blowout of Washington, D.C., war on the streets, it's effectively those like 3 levels in the original Modern Warfare 2. It's a spectacle. It's guns ablazing. It is tactical. And let me say, it's very well shot. It's very effective. It is blood pounded, blood running, pulse pounding, very good action. The craft here is excellent. Very excellent craft, but it's very exploitive to me. And I'm talking getting more into the morality of it here. And of course I'm gonna. It's called Civil War, and it's an election year. And when the credits were rolling, which excellent credit sequence, I very much like what they did there. Leaving the theater, I'm like, this doesn't sit well with me, and not in a way like if this had been a pro-conservative or pro-progressive, pro-socialist, pro-whatever movie, that'd leave me a certain way. But the fact that Garland was trying to be quote unquote apolitical while showing those scenes of the Lincoln Memorial, very effective, but the Lincoln Memorial getting hit with a JDAM missile or not a JDAM, you know what I'm talking about. All you military folks that are going to flood the YouTube comments, not of our thing, but of all these clips. Of course, I'm going to watch these clips on YouTube. They're badass clips. But that's the thing, right? It just feels very exploitive to me. And it just feels like this was a critical, I'm not going to say a critical miss, but it's like its place in the zeitgeist in 2024. And what it's going to say in the future, man, I don't think it's going to age well at all. The overall message, it's going to be watched a lot, and people are going to, filmmakers are going to walk away from this very much inspired, and they should be. But its story, I don't know. It's kind of a moral quagmire, and not in the way I don't think Garland was going for. And with that, I think we'll pivot. All can pick that up after the break.
An outstanding monologue, to say the very least. I don't agree with it entirely, but I really respect it. I thought it was eloquently stated, diplomatically stated. And I definitely, I reason with a couple of your points, and I will touch on that. We will touch on that coming up on Sleepless with Steve here. We got to go on our Zoom sponsored intermission. I think your monologue was the perfect length for that as well, too. Yeah. So that was very, very, very fine use of the final 7 minutes. Before we do have to take our Zoom sponsored intermission, we will come back here in about 60 to 90 seconds to talk more about Civil War here on Sleepless with Steve. Don't go anywhere. Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve. We are live on YouTube here talking the movie Civil War. And Dom had a stellar monologue going into the Zoom-sponsored intermission, too. A lot of your points I definitely understand, and I definitely like some of the points you brought up, too, as well. I do think the one thing that you address in this movie, and I think it is reason for debate. I'm not quite sure where I land on it at the moment, because I will admit I hadn't truly considered it until then. Is the use of the riot footage from 2020, the George Floyd protest.
That's specifically. I'm not saying that should never be done. Because that happens in film all the time, right? Where Monkey Man, right? They took, I believe,
they did.
I need to verify that. Yeah, they took real life targeting of trans people of that community in India. That's totally fine because
Black Klansman did it too.
Yeah, exactly, totally fine. And that wasn't even the same time period, but that was very effective of what the director wanted to say. And this, I get it, but it just felt context. It felt. I don't know. It felt exploitative to me.
I mean, with Monkey Man, even since that was our most recent movie, I mean, the movie is saying something about that community. It's this community is being pushed out of living in their little circle and communities that they have, and it's shining light on that. I did agree with you as well, Dom, on that case, and that was something in the opening credits I kind of felt a little weird seeing on screen. Not in the opening credits, but looking back on it now, when you brought it up, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, that was weird because it's you really
and not in the way that because it's supposed to unsettle you, but it's that just and
it did, and it made me think, oh, okay, I already know where this movie's going. And
but here's the thing, and it's but we know the politics of every single one of those shots. I'm oh, that's a George Floyd protest. Oh, that they're trying to. It's the January 6th insurrection. We know exactly the politics of that situation, and then we pivot to a movie into a world where we are intentionally kept vague the politics. So it's in that specific thing, I'm I don't know.
I'd like to make clear here, though. I would say this, and maybe I wasn't super clear. I mean, I was just giving a general overview, too. I will say this, and I do think I've tried not to read any discourse on this movie that A, isn't from professional critics, or B, isn't on Letterboxd or IMDb. So I know people have seen it. I have no use, no patience to look up hashtag Civil War on Twitter or look up comments. I have no.
I actually did.
I was
did,
having
Steve,
a ball on Facebook looking underneath movie trailer comments and be seeing the guy comment, they just want to program us, and it's bro, you didn't even watch
I'm
the
too
movie.
old for
Facebook's
that.
even worse.
Too old for that shit.
I actually believe Facebook is even worse than Twitter.
It kind of is sometimes.
But it's just Twitter. It actually wasn't as bad as we were thinking when the first trailer dropped or whatever. When the first poster dropped.
Worse than.
And I think that is to Garland's credit that they were, whoever, everyone that wrote this, they're trying to, they were able to keep it as apolitical as possible, but that's the thing. That's kind of my problem. I'm not saying there should have been direct reference to Trump, direct reference to Biden, but again, I just think it's the fact that last sequence, that last whole thing, just that completely betrays what they were trying to do with the story. I don't know. But
I'm gonna add this though. I don't want. And this is more to me saying this too, because we've been dropping the word apolitical quite frequently here. I don't want people to misinterpret that as the film itself not having a purpose or not having
any
overarching
message,
themes or any message whatsoever.
Oh, it's got plenty of themes to messages.
It's got a lot going for it that I think might have been obscured more if we got into the minutia of the Western forces, manifesto, motivations, geopolitical conflict on American soil and things. There is a movie to be made about that. There certainly is.
I mean, shit, what is it about Republic and California that made them look at the current president in this movie, who basically elects himself for a third term, and go, yeah, we got to join up and stop that. What is
there's implications. Right?
It's
hey, they're not even going to take this guy prisoner. They're going for it 1,000%.
And it leaves you it puts you in that journalist sort of mindset about like of the photojournalist mindset of like you're not here to really ask questions, you're here more to document. And this is the difference. This is why like the only reviews I've seen myself frustrated are is calling them journalists without dropping photo in journalists in there
Yeah.
too, because that is an important distinction. They're not they're reporting on it from a visual perspective. It's a visual documentation via artifacts. But going back to what I'm saying, it's very easy. Garland's not going to do this, I don't think, but it's very easy to see how this movie could spawn its own Quiet Place slash Bird Box sort of world. And like it's very easy to, like there's another movie to be made about the minutia and how the Western forces arose and how the country got divided and things like that.
Or even where the movie goes after the events of this film.
Yes,
I don't
that's
I
not
don't
the
know how
movie.
to feel. I really don't know how to. You're right. There is. I just don't know how to feel about that.
I'm not asking for that movie either.
I am
What I'm
Mhm.
not.
saying though is that that's not the movie Garland wanted to make,
Correct.
clearly. And
It's
I
not.
don't think that's a bad thing at the end of the day.
Me neither.
I think there is I think the value in this movie. The real value in this movie here is, I mean, first off, I'll always be offhandedly biased to a movie where the message is the necessity of journalism, while contrarily showing and not showing the depths of the profession and not romanticizing it either. Because this movie doesn't do. Lee
No.
Smith is very cynical. Kirsten Dunst's character is very cynical. She's very standoffish and very aloof towards Kaylee Spaney's character a lot in this movie. She doesn't take her under her wing like you almost suspect initially, but I do think that there is some value in this movie, at least in the realm of documenting what something like this could look like. I don't think it was necessary to have to take a political stance for this movie to be successful, or even further go into the minutia of that, because I think what Garland is focusing on here is strong enough to withstand that, and it also gives you sort of a non-biased look at various sectors or at various different locations in this movie as the Civil War is
Yeah.
unfolding.
And the
Yeah, go ahead,
photojournalists.
Joe.
Sorry, yeah, sorry. The photojournalists are such a great like seat for the avatar, or just like character for the
100%.
avatar. Avatar for the audience is what I meant to say. Because they don't carry weapons with them or anything. They're just in these combat situations, like the one that takes place at the university, the sniper one, the Jesse Plemons incident, and then the DC thing where it's just like you're as helpless as they are, where it's just like bullets are whizzing by you and everything. And the sound design in this movie is phenomenal.
Fantastic.
It really is. I saw this in
It is.
IMAX, and like I thought it was just for like I was like, man, the IMAX like really brought the sound to life. I
It
talked
was
to
like
so
Sicario level,
Yeah.
where it's like guns feel like guns.
yeah, I
Like
talked to so many
guns.
people. This was so weird to see too. People at work who normally don't go see the movies, that'll be like, oh, this is like one of like Poor Things. I'll be like, yeah, that's my favorite movie this year, and they'll never go see it because like that shit looks like weird. They came to my office this week and they were like, dude, I saw Civil War. That movie was awesome. Like, it was such a great action movie. It was scary. It was tense. And I was just like, I did not expect anybody at work to go see this thing. Granted, I do work for the government. Maybe that's why. And everything. But like they were even telling me too. I was like, oh, what did you see it in? Did you see it in IMAX or anything? No, they're like, I just saw it in the normal standard format, but it sounded amazing. And I'm like, all right, that's like good to hear that. Like even in normal format, the sound design in this movie is still as good. But anyways, and then Dom, I'll toss it back to you. Yeah, being in these tense situations with them and having these great technical aspects of like both the cinematography and sound really helps sell you how tense those situations are and how like dangerous America has become throughout the duration of this film.
Looking back at all of those like episodes when they're on the road, each of those 3 or 4, let's say, before they finally hit DC and shit gets going, right? I'm thinking like this, if we just knock on, I'm not asking for like a rewrite here. I'm not doing that. But like makes you wonder, because when we're talking about like, hey, let's get into the politics of this should have had more politics in it. The smooth brain take is let's get exactly into how we wanted to get into it, with like, hey, here's like 20 minutes of how the Western forces came to be, and we're gonna focus on like a military drama. It's like here's their drive from Austin all the way to DC. Like, no, that's hyper exploitative. That's gross even. And I'm someone who likes that stuff in the abstract, right? Like I won't mind like some 2-bit video game studio, doing that, whatever, right? There, there was like a $5 Civil War turn-based game where it's like I think you might even know it's like really budget.
Yeah, it is.
But
yeah.
anyway,
Like
there's like a
Idaho is its
million.
own state. It's like, oh, good luck,
There's
Idaho.
100%. There's like a million American Civil War in the present day like scenarios out there. I love alternate history hub. I love, military fiction, all that stuff. So that stuff can be my bread and butter. But something on this mainstream level that's trying to be this highbrow about, not even highbrow, but trying to be this, grandiose about everything. Trying to be an epic. It's an epic, right? And I'm cool with that. I'm totally cool with that. But I do wonder if it had taken, if it had just stayed, let me say, it stayed on its grounded approach. That might have been more of an avenue to explore the politics of things. And hey, here's the thing: you don't wanna poke any hornets' nests all too bad. Okay, that's fine. That's okay. You can do that through those vignettes, like the Jesse Plemons scene. That's like the number one scene everyone's gonna remember from this, probably, right? From the trailers and from the movie itself. Like that was an excellent scene.
Damn
extremism, right? Extremism. There's some room to explore that a little bit more. You don't have to have like Aaron Sorkin levels, 10 minutes of them explaining their ideologies and debating that, or whatever. But you can explore that some more. I mean, every scene here, I will say, on the road has its purpose and its message, and I do appreciate that. There really isn't that much time wasted.
Yeah.
But it's like, did we need to see like a Humvee pouring rounds into the presidential bear, the limousine? Did we need to see an M1 Abrams shooting at, it's like, look, what are those scenes meant to be? Cool. It's really, really cool, right? If you wanted it to be a little bit more war as hell, you could have had like, oh, here's a mother like dragging her children through that. No, it's just soldiers shooting soldiers. And there happens to be the Washington Monument in the background. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I do, and Dom, I see what you're saying, and
I'm debating the morality of it here. Technically, I think we're all in agreement. This is fantastic, right?
I see what you're saying here about the climax of the movie and everything, like, and I totally see your point and everything. I merely disagree because for me, when I was watching it, it was just unsettling because throughout the film,
it is.
The photojournalists, like, they're not specifically saying whose side they're on. They're just documenting this for the future.
That is
true.
Whatever
it is being used.
Yeah.
And
at one point they embedded themselves. It's like in the middle. They embedded themselves with Boogaloo Boys. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
So they are anti-government extreme. So actually, hold on. Garland did actually take an interesting stance here. The Boogaloo Boys are anti-government, pretty much terrorists. And what they do is they wear Hawaiian shirts, flower shirts, like they look like Tommy Vercetti from Vice City, but they're. And the whole point is that, hey, Civil War II, Electric Boogaloo, Boogaloo Boys, right? And it's like they're like fighting regular army soldiers, and that's like a whole.
Horses, I think, in that scene, honestly.
And I don't know if it's the Wikipedia says loyalists. Again, here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? Even though they didn't show the Boogaloo Boys being hyper violent. They didn't show them being extremists. They didn't show them being that. They just showed them being normal. You showed the Boogaloo Boys. You showed that. And you didn't show them being crazy. You didn't show them stating their political goals. And that's, in my opinion, problematic. Because now one thing that you may have inferenced, even if that's not Garland's intention. I'm pretty sure that wasn't his intention. I don't think he's pro Boogaloo Boys, right?
I don't think so either.
I don't think so. I really don't think so. But by not
Especially
doing
from the
that,
movie Men, I don't think he's Boogaloo Boys.
That's very true. Yeah. Again, I'm not saying Garland is a secret conservative or anything like that. I'm just saying one point of irresponsibility here is that by showing the Boogaloo Boys be normal, you are now portraying them as normal. And it's like, oh, hey, maybe the Boogaloo Boys are really cool after all. Again, we're smart enough to not see that, but you put this on wide release call it civil war, and it's an election year, right? I keep saying that because that's the environment that we are in, and that's the product you've put out. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. What I was gonna say is, like, because the photojournalists don't really have a side, they're just kind of documenting and just interacting with whoever they're with that day, whether it be the Boogaloo Boys, whether it be the Western Forces, whether it be the Loyalists, whoever it may be. It's honestly scary to think, like, because they're not picking a side and they don't really have a narrative they're trying to spin, they're just trying to document this, they're just trying to get photos. You don't really know who's killing who. Not who's killing who. You don't really know if it's good killing bad. You don't really know if the consequence of this battle is actually a good thing for America or is going to actually turn out to be a bad thing. Because they even say it in the movie, too, at the very beginning, right before they leave for D.C. Once, the Western forces take over D.C., they're just going to kill each other. They're going to split apart and everything and just kill each other. So as you're, like, inching closer to D.C. and you're watching, like I was saying, too, during the monologue of my, like, opening, that, like, it is scary to see, like, neighbor turning on neighbor even in the gas station incident. Yeah. And it's just like, oh my God.
That was a great scene.
Yeah. That was, yeah. Like, and it's just like, is a civil war really worth having because you'll turn on your fellow neighbor, you'll turn on your another American citizen and everything. And just watching them go throughout the events of this movie, and it's just like, you're dealing with this guy who is a sniper, and he snipes a dude inside the building. Yeah, the sniper is trying to kill the press guys. Maybe he's a bad guy. I don't know, though. Maybe he was just trying to survive and killing anybody he sees. These Boogaloo Boys are fighting, whether it be the Loyalists, according to the Wikipedia page, or the Western Forces, who knows. When they kill those guys at the end of that scene and everything, is like, is that really a good thing to be happening now? Who are they really fighting for? Like, are they fighting for the president who is trying to elect himself for a third term? Are they trying to get the president out? And it's just like, it keeps that fear of, like, I don't think a civil war is a good idea, because who the fuck is fighting who, and who's gonna be really who's gonna be on each other's side, and what's gonna be good and evil in that instance. And the Jesse Plemons scene really sells that, because he's wearing a uniform. You don't know if he's part of an army and he's just an utter piece of shit racist that killed a bunch of people of color and will just kill anybody who's not, in his eyes, American enough. And it's just like, okay, dude, like, that scares me more than anything, because it's just like, if a civil war will give power to a person like that, where they could go off from their platoon and do this on the side, that is fucking terrifying.
Or he might have just been a local Yahoo.
And he could have just been that. Who the hell wearing military garments because it's a war, baby. Yahoo.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, dude, there will not be 4 factions in an American Civil War. Let me actually tell you how a Civil War. Sorry. Let me tell you what is like most likely to happen.
Baby. There's going to be a lot.
It's not gonna be along state lines. It's going to be city versus urban versus rural. It's going to be ideologies popping up in local neighborhoods.
Austin
the boroughs
Texas.
Of New York. Yeah, exactly. 1000%. That's way more like, I will give credit. There was a tweet out there where it's like, I hope Alex Garland realizes that Civil War is going to be less blowing up the Lincoln Memorial with a helicopter and more waiting in line for water for 5 hours and then a bomb going off. And lo and behold, the opening scene shows that.
Yeah,
so
that was awesome.
Credit there. But here's the thing. That is what war. That's what even like regular. That's what any war is
and me
for
saying
civilians.
That's awesome. I just actually, I'm not saying, oh, that's awesome as in like an action.
Right.
I just think it's like, wow, you actually opened the movie with something that realistic that's happening in war-torn countries where people are waiting for supplies and it just gets bombed by somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. If Alex Garland, this is not a critique, but if you really wanted to show a realistic what Civil War might be, that would be the whole movie. Yeah. That neighborhood would be the whole movie. But again, that's far and beyond the point I'm trying to make. I don't know, Steve. I was
gonna
say,
Steve, you haven't said much actually since we came back from the break.
No, you're fine. No, I went kind of long too coming back, kind of set the stage for this too. So, and I'm also I've kind of taken the approach too with Sleepless as well too. I like when if you guys have an internal or external debate going on, I'm the one with the website and the 8-10 paragraph review that you can read too. I've kind of already given my stance too. I like having this discussion. If I hear a good discussion from you two, I'm going to listen, which I also think was a point I made in my review actually too. I said this is going to elicit uncomfortable conversations even amongst friends and family. Not that I would classify this one as uncomfortable.
No, not at all,
but by no means. But I just think it's fitting, even to my own words, that I said in my review. I said this film is bound to elicit uncomfortable conversations, even amongst the friends and family with whom you see it. And I said, just remember to listen before you respond. That's how I ended my review of the movie.
That's probably why this isn't uncomfortable, because I let Dom say everything, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I see where you're coming from.
That's exactly right. It's amazing when you can let somebody fucking speak. You know what I mean? The really good conversation that it can have over here. I don't think this is a perfect movie by any means, but I do think that judging the movie on the Birdian school of thought, as I've talked about in the past too, about what a movie is trying to do and whether or not it succeeds, I see the success here with Civil War. I truly do. I think Garland has already established himself as a very visual director. He's done that. I mean, it's hard to believe that 10 years ago, Ex Machina came out. And that was his directorial debut. Then he went on to do Annihilation, obviously, with Natalie Portman, which was kind of divisive in its own sense, too. But I also very much liked that movie, too. And Men was even more divisive. I like that. I like that movie. I don't know if it's aged super well in my mind. I think that was one of the cases of an average movie being buoyed by a pretty shocking and also elaborately detailed metaphor of an ending. But be that as it may, though, focusing more on Civil War, I think what you're left with here is a movie that's, I think, equal parts captivating. I think tells a really good story from the perspective of photojournalists, which is a sector of the population that even in all the movies about journalists, this is a subsector that I don't think it's humanized very often on screen. And also a movie that Joe's mentioned it, I think, the most out of all of us too, is also too. And I think putting the politics aside with what Garland did is made a movie that's really fucking disturbing in a lot of sequences too. Is he made a movie with a lot of set pieces that are unnerving to watch, especially I think the DC
the DC one
scene
really hit home for me, because it's just like, I've been to DC, and it, like, whether you like this country or not, seeing its history and all these monuments built towards that, it is something amazing to see. And just to watch the country not only tear itself apart, but just to ruin its origin, it was like, oh fuck, dude.
That's heavy about it. Also, the scenes where, I don't want to ruin it, but like where they think the president might be evacuating. Those scenes.
Yeah.
Like those scenes in particular. The way you feel the gunfire in this movie and the violence, even if you might not know the people getting shot and killed, I think is very strong here too. I also think the performances are great too.
Yeah.
I think the one person
was great.
I think the one person, and Kaylee Spaney's so good, Kirsten Dunst is so good here. I think the one person who might get sidelined here, mainly because he's not a big name in America yet, is probably Wagner Moura. And Wagner Moura here definitely has that, like, he's got charisma. Like he's not been completely jaded yet. Like Sammy, Stephen McKinley Henderson, he's not completely jaded like him, nor Kirsten Dunst's character, but he gets one viscerally great scene in this movie.
Is it the muted sound, just the music?
The muted sound scene. The muted sound scene. Yes. He gets one.
What a great shot. That's like shot of the year for me so far.
Viscerally great sequence right there that he gets, and he doesn't have to utter a single word. I think he's a reactive actor.
Maybe one really long word, but yeah.
Yes, but we don't hear it.
He also brings a lot of comedic elements to the film that really do give you a sense of
a more lightheartedness.
Yeah. Like when you have these tense moments and he's cracking a joke, or like he just says something so like immature, but like he's a journalist, so he's a journalist who is an adrenaline junkie almost, it seems like, about everything that
They all are. Let me say that.
Yeah,
they
all
are like
yeah.
that.
But him
and they will
especially.
admit it. They will absolutely admit it.
Him especially. He brings like a lot of relief to the film. During a lot of tense moments, like that sniper scene, like it starts out tense, and then the conversation he has with the two guys made me crack up, and it was like, okay, this at least from the previous scene, and where we're going next. I don't want to say what it is, but where it goes next, it's like I needed a bit of a comedic break because where we're heading, the last like 30 minutes of this movie, from Jesse Plemons to DC, I was like grabbing my seat, like, dude, this is getting fucking crazy.
This is a quick side note. I think we're seeing a renaissance of the R word for mentally challenged people, and that's very unfortunate. I will say that's very unfortunate, but man, the two uses of them so far that I've seen in Poor Things and in Civil War, God damn it, those were actually pretty damn good. I'm sorry.
Like, what a 2024 movie has said it so far, but yeah, when Poor
Oh,
Things
okay,
said,
sorry.
When Poor Things said it recently, when we saw it, dude, I lost it in the theater.
Well, and Poor Thing, I almost think Poor Things gets a pass because the thing with Poor Things is like,
well, it was set like the 1800s, right? Yeah.
It's not clear where it's set. It could be the 1800s. It has some of the workings of the 1800s, but then you see like some of the steampunk sort of aesthetic that it has. I think Poor Things kind of works. You know what I mean? Regardless of how you feel about it, I do think it kind of works too. But no, I was just kind of parlaying myself here into closing thoughts on this movie. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a controversial point in itself. But Garland is clearly less fascinated with the political inner workings and how and why a country derails into turmoil, and he's more intrigued here by how those tasked with covering the chaos operate with a commitment to their profession, a clear head, and even the act of, as Dom mentioned earlier in the review too, of not getting directly involved, which is a statement in and of itself. But for me, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I don't know if enjoy is a great word for it. I was thoroughly captivated by this movie and the discussions after the fact too. So for me, it's 3.5 out of 4 stars. I thoroughly like this movie. I think it does a lot right. I do think some of its intentions are up for debate, but I think of very few great movies are black and white in that way. And I do think that it'll be interesting to see how this movie ages, as Dom was pointing out earlier.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how this movie ages. I don't think the political climate's getting any less divisive here, but I do think the masses, we the viewers, were given a movie that was smarter and a bit more nuanced than we were led to believe initially from the trailer. And maybe the discourse that it was incited by the trailers, intentionally or not. We'll go Joe, then Dom for final thoughts here.
I've seen, throughout the time of us doing this show back in college and just being like, also just enjoying film and everything, I've seen a lot of films that, get very political with their thing. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I enjoy when a movie does that. I'll fucking sign up for the next Malcolm X like biopic that Spike Lee wants to make, or like the next something Spike Lee wants to make in general, where he'll make commentary about something. I'm all for that shit, man. But I've also seen movies like Don't Look Up, and I'm not saying Don't Look Up is a bad movie. I like Don't Look Up, but where it goes in terms of its political messaging, it's
dude, oh my god, yeah. If this movie did some Don't Look Up shit, fuck this movie.
Yeah,
but
not to interrupt you, there's something to be said about movies like that age even worse.
Yeah, that'll age horribly.
And
Vice
is another one, and it's, again, I like Vice, but it's like I know down the line it's not going to age the best. And I've come out of those movies, not Vice so much. I had plenty to say about Vice when I came out of it, but especially Don't Look Up, where it's trying to bring up all these things about politics and the world and everything, and I come out of it saying not really much. And I'm just like, you know what, like, this is what it really was as a movie, and this is what it turned out to be, compared to something like Milk or even In the Loop, stuff like that, where I'm like, I had more to say about those movies. Or shit, even all the men. Oh my god, what's that movie called?
All the President's Men?
All the President's Men, thank you. Yes.
Oh.
Where it's like I had so much more to say about those like types of movies. Civil War, while it didn't get as politically as Vice, or even, and I hate to be using both Adam McKay movies for this, as Don't Look Up, because I don't want to punch the guy down. As much as it didn't get like there, I still found way more to say about this movie than I did with those movies. And I think that really speaks out to how good of a job Garland did with this. Even though he remained apolitical, and however you want to take that stance of, what apolitical means to you, whether it be Dom's definition or the definition I see on Letterboxd, which is, this guy's a pussy, he didn't take a stance. That's up to you. For me, I really enjoyed it because it gave me more to say in terms of filmmaking and also his messaging and themes. And I walked out of it with a lot more to say. It's not a perfect film. I didn't get into much of my criticisms, but I will say I thought the film started out a bit bumpy and it was a little took a while to get going, establishing some stuff. In the first 20 minutes, that was my only critique. Is that basically I think it opens, other than with that New York scene with the bombing. I think I was just kind of I feel like this is kind of a little bit jank on how things are getting going here. But once it takes off, it takes off. For me, it's 3.5 out of 4 stars.
Yeah, Alex Garland's Civil War is a superb product, and out of all the directors that could have, and all the writers that could have written this movie, right? Hey, let's make a movie about what a civil war would look like in the United States. There could have been so many worse picks than Alex Garland. Might have treated it less respectfully. Might have taken a more, pointed stance. Even if it's a stance that aligns perfectly with my politics, could have been way more cringy. But no, there could have been, there are many worse approaches to this movie than what we had here. And I do believe that this, if it had stayed they've had stayed grounded, stay close to its humanness, and or deteriorating, showcasing the deterioration of that humanness, and stayed a road movie, I think it would have been better served for what Garland was trying to do. Because yes, that last sequence, that Washington D.C. sequence, like Wagner Moura said, it got me hard, man. But is that what you want to put out into the world? Is that what you want to put out into the world? Right? Because when he says that in the movie, it's like, you say that, you're just like, that's bad juju. I don't know if you want to do that. Anyway, that's all my moralizing. This craft is on display here. And despite what I think is a more exploitive and irresponsible product at the end, great product. 3 solid stars here for me.
Wow. Okay.
No, I mean, really looking back at it, I'm like, I'm going to be looking at these YouTube clips and I'm going to be enjoying them as action pieces.
I thought of my damn, we still haven't had a movie where we're just kind of like in line of like star rating still, but no, okay, this is,
if this was pure, like, if the lens of our discussion was purely on like the morals of this product, it would probably be much lower. But for as a complete product for what we're doing here, it's pretty damn solid. Yeah.
Really solid stuff here tonight. I'm glad we took the whole show to talk this movie too.
Yeah, same.
Because we could still go on and talk about it more. And that's what I think
absolutely.
is the one thing about this movie that is indisputable is that you can have a great conversation about it too. And I think we did that tonight. I think we did it justice. I think we did this, show justice as well, but also a movie worth talking about justice too. One of the first movies that you can truly emerge from this year and actually have a really great discussion about too, which I'm always up to do. Next week, a complete pivot. We are talking Abigail on the show too. We are talking the new horror movie Abigail on the show. It is directed by the Radio Silence gentleman, who made the last 2 Scream movies. I'm just going to say this. I'll have more to say next week. I'm really glad they're taking on an original property as opposed to Scream 7. So that's all I'll say about that. Because the last time we got an original property from them, we got Ready or Not. And that was a pretty damn good movie in itself, too. So we got that coming up as well. Another movie, too, that we'll touch on. I added it to the May schedule during the show, just to let you guys know. I slotted it for mid to early May because I am going to be gone the first week of May. So just an FYI, I stuck you guys with Unfrosted, the Pop-Tart story for the when I'm gone, the Netflix movie Pop-Tarts, because I selfishly wanted to talk about Late Night with the Devil with you guys.
Hell yeah. No, that's exactly the approach to take.
Oh my God.
That comes to Shudder on Friday.
Okay. All right. Cool.
That comes to Shudder on Friday, yes. That had a very quick run in theaters, didn't make a ton of money, but never came out here. Catherine and I are pissed. Never came out here.
Do we have, is Shutter, do you guys have access to Shutter? Do I need to buy, I can buy that movie if need be.
I can figure it out.
I got it. Trust me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We can figure this out.
Yeah.
We can figure this out here. But it's not till well, it comes out this Friday, but we will watch it and review it for mid-May. Just an FYI on that. Really excited to watch and talk about that. So just some movies down the line, including Abigail next week, and also Challengers too. The new Luca Guadagnino movie with Zendaya, which I cannot wait for. Super excited for that movie too. Lots of great stuff on the docket. And then we have Unfrosted, the Pop-Tart story. That being said, great discussion tonight about Civil War. Really appreciate you tuning in. Really appreciate you guys showing up, giving your best as always on a Wednesday evening, especially when Joe is so burnt out. You wouldn't have known that based on the discussion we had today for sure. Until then, we'll be back next week with a review of Abigail. For Dominic Guanzon, Joe Viso, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.